Donald Trump was having a meltdown late last night. He called an emergency meeting on Capitol Hill at the Capitol Hill Club with his cabinet and other top officials and former campaign aides. They're looking at the midterms now, which is fast approaching, and they are expecting a complete wipeout in the midterms, that they expect the Democrats to destroy them in the House and the Senate, ripping away any shred of power that Donald Trump has left. They were looking at the latest Reuters Ipsos poll, which shows Donald Trump's disapproval hitting 60%, Trump's approval on immigration being a net negative 17%. That's an all-time low. Donald Trump's approval on the economy, net negative 23%, and his approval falling fast among men. They can't stop the bleeding. They don't know what to do. Trump had his pollsters there, Fabrizio, saying you are screwed right now, and they are trying to figure this out. So what does Donald Trump do? He goes to his old toolkit and he starts posting QAnon memes late last night. That's right, around midnight. This is what Donald Trump posted from this emergency meeting. This is the lesson that Donald Trump learned. It is a photo of himself like this, looking ominously in this meme, and he goes, "I will be the one to shut it down." And then the post says, "People that doubted will soon see. Great clip, friend. I will be the one to shut it down." Well, we are in a partial government shutdown. We previously were in the longest government shutdown in history. You are the one to shut it down. And also, if you mean shutting down the American economy, shutting down America's power, shutting down America's dignity, well done, Donald. You succeeded. And this is what you're posting at like midnight right now after your emergency meeting. Also, Donald Trump posted this late last night as well. He goes, "Crooked elections cannot be allowed in the USA. President DJT." So the lesson, as his pollsters, Fabrizio and others, are telling him, you are screwed, is he's just going to call the elections crooked. Same old playbook by Donald Trump, the leader of the Epstein class, the leader of the cabal, while he covers up a child sex trafficking ring. Here's what we don't forget about that. We're going to cover it every single damn episode. By the way, make sure you hit subscribe. Help us get to 6 million subscribers. Basically 30,000 subscribers away from hitting that. So help us get to 6 million subscribers. Donald Trump also posts Dan Bongino had John Sullivan on his show today, and Solomon made an interesting prediction that Trump will soon unveil evidence that foreign powers meddled in the 2020 election, which will result in John Thune ultimately caving on the filibuster, and the Save America Act will get passed. These are Donald Trump's delusions of delusions, because he is a desperate and pathetic individual. I wonder, Donald, is part of your plan to have Maduro in exchange for a deal, say that Venezuela was involved with secret Italian CIA satellites in China in order to overthrow the 2020 election because you can't handle the fact that you lost by millions of votes to former President Joe Biden? And here we are in 2026 as Americans are psychologically tortured, living paycheck to paycheck. If they're lucky enough to have a paycheck, they're getting their health care ripped away from them. You're covering up the Epstein files, covering up a child sex trafficking ring. We're in a jobs recession. Manufacturing is crashing. The rich are getting richer. Everybody else is getting absolutely screwed. And you're talking about the 2020 elections. Grow the hell up. Seriously. Stop freaking whining. So that was Donald Trump's result of the emergency meeting that he held. You know, you also have people right now going back to like Steve Bannon's text messages with Epstein, where they were saying back in 2019 and 2018 that the 25th Amendment needed to be invoked against Donald Trump back then. That's right, Donald. You had Bannon and Epstein and others, part of the Epstein class, talking about you behind your back then, saying the 25th Amendment needed to be invoked. You have Marjorie Taylor Greene posting the thread. Steve Bannon went to jail for Trump. I was there. But back on January 1st, 2019, he was texting with Epstein about the 25th Amendment. And Donald Trump needing to have the 25th Amendment invoked against him. You even have Mike Flynn, one of the biggest MAGA sycophants, saying the White House, or at least the DOJ, needs to come out and say what they plan on doing with this information. I remember all of the 25th Amendment talk back in the first term. It was really ugly. And if Bannon and Epstein were behind it, Bannon needs to be brought in for questioning. It was Trump's inner circle who was saying that the 25th Amendment needed to be invoked against Donald Trump then. But speaking about the Epstein files, I'll just set the scene for you. You've got Donald Trump calling emergency meeting at the Capitol Club. He's got all of his cabinet people, his pollsters there. Donald Trump leaves the meeting. He leaves, gets all the data, and starts posting QAnon memes about himself. And then he, by the way, after learning about the Reuters Ipsos poll, where his approval or his disapproval is 60%, Donald Trump then gets the following report as well. Millions of files related to Jeffrey Epstein suggest the existence of a global criminal enterprise that carried out acts meeting the legal threshold of crimes against humanity, a panel of independent experts appointed by the UN Human Rights Council has said. And so the United Nations Human Rights Council appointed a panel of experts. And the experts say that the crimes that they've reviewed thus far, that we've all reviewed, that we've talked about here on the MeidasTouch network, in the Epstein files, and only a small fraction of the files have actually been released. About 2 to 5% have been released. There's about 50 terabytes that are still being hidden. And that's where the worst stuff is. I want you to think about it. They're still hiding the worst stuff. So what we've seen, the redacted stuff, is not even close to the worst stuff. I just want you to remember that. The expert said the crimes outlined in the documents released by the Justice Department were committed against a background of supremacist beliefs, racism, corruption, and extreme misogyny. The crimes, they said, showed a commodification and a dehumanization of girls and women. So grave is the scale, nature, systemic character, and transnational reach of these atrocities against women and girls that a number of them may reasonably meet the legal threshold of crimes against humanity, the experts for the United Nations says. These experts said the allegations require an independent, thorough, and impartial investigation, and said inquiries should also be launched into how it was possible for such crimes to be committed for so long. We know that there's at least over 1,200 victims. 1,200 victims. So utterly disgusting. And by the way, you may have seen a video that I did recently where a reporter came on and they were like, there's no allegations against Donald Trump in the files. And I very quickly pushed back. I said, of course there are allegations. And by the way, Donald Trump's been found civilly liable of sexual abuse. Donald Trump's on videotape saying that he grabs women by their vaginas because he's rich and he lets you get away with it. He's there saying he inspects girls in beauty pageants because when you're the owner of a beauty pageant, you get to do that, is what he said. He says that saying those things are locker room talk and that it's courageous to say those things. I mean, this is, there are allegations like this in the files. Just to remind you all, this is a declaration, a witness sworn penalty of perjury declaration. Tiffany Doe, that's the pseudonym, dated June 18th, 2026. I personally witnessed defendant Trump telling the plaintiff that she shouldn't ever say anything if she didn't want to disappear like the 12-year-old female blank, and that he was capable of having the whole family killed. After leaving the employment of Mr. Epstein in the year 2000, I was personally threatened by Mr. Epstein that I would be killed and my family killed as well if I ever disclosed any of the physical and sexual abuse of minor females that I personally witnessed by Mr. Epstein and any other guest. I am coming forward to the truthfulness of the physical and sexual abuse that I personally witnessed of minor females at the hands of Mr. Trump and Mr. Epstein, including the plaintiff, during the time of my employment from the years 1990 to 2000 for Epstein. I swear to these facts under penalty of perjury. Someone who worked for Epstein for 10 years submitting a sworn affidavit. Or there were separate allegations that said that Jane Doe stated Epstein introduced her to Trump, who subsequently forced her head down to his exposed penis, which is subsequently bit. In response, Trump punched her in the head and kicked her out. And by the way, the allegation was sufficient to trigger further FBI inquiry, which then just stopped all of a sudden. Or how about this? Another Jane Doe remembers Epstein introduced her to Trump, saying, "This is a good one, huh?" And Trump responded, yes. By the way, additional data emerging as well. So not only was Howard Lutnick at Epstein's Island in business deals with Epstein, receiving gifts from Epstein and donations from Epstein. And, after Lutnick lied and said he never did it and he brought his children to the island. Well, Howard Lutnick's sister, Eddie Lutnick, was a founding citizen, as it was called, of Terra Mar, the nonprofit organization established and run by Ghislaine Maxwell. This was a message, October 13, 2012, from Eddie Lutnick. Check out Terra Mar Project and protect the high seas. Check it out, everybody. This is what Eddie Lutnick wrote back then. And by the way, Ghislaine Maxwell, when she was allowed into polite society, even though she was engaged in child sex trafficking, she spoke at the United Nations. She spoke at the UN about Terra Mar. I mean, we have video of her speaking. I represent civil society. I represent civil society. This was her speech in 2014 in the United Nations. Here, play this clip.
First of all, Your Excellencies, Presidents, Lords, ladies and gentlemen, I just would like to thank you so much, and it's such an honor to be here. I'm here representing civil society. My passion for the ocean, for those of you, there's a slideshow going up there, so you don't just have to hear me, you can see the pictures as well. Started when I was a little girl. I grew up watching Jacques Cousteau on TV and became mesmerized with the oceans. It led to me becoming a deep worker submersible pilot. And ultimately, on one of my first dives, where I went down expecting to see a fish, I switched on the lights at the bottom of the ocean and saw a plastic hanger.
And throughout the day as well, you had Trump regime officials just posting deranged things. RFK Jr. and Kid Rock were posting photos of themselves drinking milk. I've teamed up with Kid Rock to deliver the simple message to the American people. Get active, eat real food. And they're running around with their shirts off and doing sit-ups and saunas or whatever the hell this is. What the hell is even going on there? I'm going to do another video this morning on the failed peace discussions, whatever you want to call them, that are taking place in Geneva as Trump and Putin try to force on Zelensky a demand to give up Donbass. And Zelensky, of course, wouldn't budge and brought in the UK and France as well to be by his side, and brought in Europe to be by his side. Wall Street Journal's also reporting the following. Companies big and small saying they're raising prices early this year, pointing a finger at tariffs. After holding the line on prices for a month, companies have begun a new round of increases, in some cases by high single-digit percentage points. The article's called "The Break is Over. Companies are jacking up prices again." Higher tariffs, labor, and health insurance costs have pushed many businesses to raise prices. And today, or I should say yesterday, Hegseth announced another attack on fishing boats off the coast of Venezuela, as well as in the Pacific. 11 more people were murdered by the Trump regime, which are additional crimes against humanity, bringing the total to more than 140 dead. As Amnesty International USA explains, this murder spree is unconscionable and illegal. Congress must do more to rein in this administration's lawless actions. You think. There you have it, folks. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million. Thanks so much for watching.